All right, everyone. Good morning. How are we all? Hope you're all well. Wednesday morning. Ryan, hello. How's things?
Things are good, yeah. You see when your laptop restarts at the worst possible moment, just a couple of minutes before you're starting a podcast. Always picks the right moments, but I'm all good. Happy to be back on the morning briefing. Yeah, pretty good time to be covering Celtic, apart from a couple of adverse results last night. But on the whole, quite a positive place to be at the moment.
Yes, in the grand scheme of things, those results are absolutely fine. We will touch on them. Loads of other things to discuss. We've got a few comments from recent days that we've not managed to get to because there's been so much to chat about. So we can bring them up and just have a good old chat and maybe a wee laugh as well. I've still got the big smile that hasn't left my face since Sunday afternoon. So everything is well. Morning, everyone. How are you all? Good to have you, Francis and Big Dom and Joe Bookless. Welcome. Yeah, big thanks for your support you're showing the channel. If you want us to support us that little bit more and get notified whenever we go live, please consider subscribing. Absolutely free, and not a lot of people know that. What have you been up to the last few days, Ryan?
I was off yesterday, so I was kind of recovering from Sunday. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about you. It was a very stressful game to watch. The 120, 130 minutes of football that was played when you include the penalties as well. But when you get to the end result, and that was a Celtic victory against Rangers in a League Cup final, then it seems all of that stress suddenly goes away. I've been enjoying the I don't know what you would call it, reaction, meltdown, whatever you want to call it. That's going.
Meltdown.
Yeah, it's very much a meltdown. I've been enjoying certain radio shows over the past couple of days as well. It's been pretty good. Yeah, it's the status quo. Celtic winning cup finals under Brendan Rodgers, but that doesn't mean it gets any less sweeter or any less sweet or boring or anything like that. I think it's just the same. In fact, doing it like that makes it all the better because Celtic had to win that game. I said at the time Celtic had to win that game 3 times on Sunday, and they still came away as the victors with those winners' medals. So yeah, it's a pretty good habit to be in. First trophy of the season secured, doing so well in the league, doing well in Europe, and then you've got the Scottish Cup to contend with in January onwards. So yeah, it's a pretty good place at the moment, especially for the men's first team. Maybe not so good for the women's team with the result last night, and the B team losing the Glasgow Cup final. But in terms of the main first team, it's a pretty good place to be at the moment. You've got players that are clearly delighted to be at the club. Players on social media, players at the darts, at the alley pally, rubbing it in just that little bit as well. It's pretty good at the moment.
Just to touch on the results you mentioned, their women's team, their final Champions League match was last night. Another defeat, 3-0 loss away to FC20. Couple of pretty poor own goals in there, to be honest. I watched the highlights earlier, and one, the goalkeeper Rogers punches the ball into her own net, which was disappointing. We scored our own goal from another corner later on. So clearly a pretty difficult Champions League campaign, but hopefully the team are better for that experience of playing against some really good teams. Even 20, I think, are a good side. And we're fifth in the SWPL, so the team will need to push on with that and defend our league title. The B team last night in action in the Glasgow Cup final, last season's Glasgow Cup final, because they didn't find time to play last season's final. So you've got two Glasgow Cups going on at the same time, a bit like during the COVID season when we finished off the Scottish Cup from the previous season. 3-2 defeat to Rangers last night. So that's them back level with us, Ryan, 119 trophies apiece, as I'm sure what some of their fans are probably saying, knowing what they're like. Probably be claiming that. I was looking at the teams, and it was a B team we had out. They had a few players you would know. Matondo, Cortez, Enciala, all kind of first team players. I think King was playing as well. So maybe not a real surprise that Rangers won that. It finished 3-2. Daniel Cummings, Samuel Isiguzo with our goals.
Yeah, Daniel Cummings scoring another goal. It'll be very interesting to see how his contractual situation is sorted out over the next 6 months or so, because he seems to be banging in the goals for the B team. As far as I'm aware, he's not been offered a new contract yet. So,
Yeah.
if he scored another goal, then it might push Celtic more towards the fact of signing him up, because, I mean, what is he, 18 years old? I think he's 5-5 in the B team in the Champions League, in the Youth Champions League. So he's been doing it all season. Seems to be a natural finisher, a poacher. He scores all types of goals. In particular, that goal against Dinamo Zagreb that he scored last week was an absolute stunner, cutting in and then scoring from just outside the box. So I know there's other teams that are interested in him. Club Brugge were one of them. So he's definitely interested in quite a few teams, especially due to his contractual situation. And Isiguzo as well, who did really well, I thought, against Sligo Rovers in that that mid-season friendly. I thought he came on alongside Sean McArdle and really did show a lot of good things in that in that mid-season game. So these are players to watch out for. You hope that they can make that next step into the first team. But yeah, it's hard lines. But Rangers did have a side full of players that you've heard of before. Have actually made that transition into the first team. Cole McKinnon as well. Lovelace, I think, scored last night, who's been in and around the first team. So I think they were using that as a sort of rehab game as well, with regard to Cortez and Matondo, etc. So hard lines, but it's a good experience for these young players to come up against first team players of Rangers too. They'll learn from that. Hopefully they can push on towards the rest of the league.
Just when you're talking about the forward situation with Cummings, I should point out at this stage that we'll get a really good look and indication on Johnny Kenny this week, I think, because his Shamrock Rovers side are playing Chelsea tomorrow night in their final Conference League match at Stamford Bridge. And it's going to be Kenny's final game for Shamrock Rovers as well. They're doing really well. They're unbeaten in the Conference League, having a really good campaign. Obviously, Chelsea's a hell of a step up for them, and they'll probably lose that match, even to Chelsea's second or third string team. But I think that's going to be a good indication. I'm definitely... There's a few games on tomorrow night that are pretty tasty, to be honest. But I think that could be a good game to watch, maybe, if people are keen to watch that and just find out a bit more about Johnny Kenny. I don't know if we've touched on his comments after their game last week when he scored a couple of goals, but he spoke quite openly about going back to Celtic and saying that that's what's going to be happening. Now he's going to have to go back and prove himself. Basically said that what he's done for Shamrock Rovers won't really matter when he gets back to Celtic. But he's an interesting player. I think he's done a bit of growing up. And that's not to say he wasn't grown up previously, but just as a young player, I think he'll have gained a bit of experience over the last year. Even like looking at him looks physically, and I mean like in terms of how his face looks, like he's got that bit older. Agreed. He doesn't look like a wee boy anymore.
I was going to make this very same point, because he does look different. He looks a lot more, I don't know, chiseled in his face. He looks like he's evened out a wee bit, and he understands he's not that he's taking his career more seriously, but as an adult, you're obviously going to do that. I think even the way that he was speaking to the media as well, because I remember he did his first sort of media conference or speaking with Celtic TV, and he sounded like a bag of nerves, to be honest. But he doesn't sound like that anymore. He sounds pretty confident in himself, and I think that's what a good loan spell can do. Even going back to somewhere that you know well, such as Ireland, going back there, banging in the goals for them, banging in the goals in the Conference League as well, will be a good test for him against Chelsea's B team. But I will caveat, Chelsea's B team is better than most teams' A teams at the moment, just given their squad depth. Very interested to see how they deal with winter fixtures, because the Conference League only lasts up to a certain point. It's not as if it's 8 games; it's 6 games, isn't it? And then
this is the end of it on Thursday.
Yeah, so it'll be very interesting to see how Chelsea and Enzo Maresca in particular deal with the schedule of games, having basically 2 teams to contend with. Obviously, they won't have Mykhailo Mudryk involved because of his latest doping charge. You wonder how far back that went. But that's a good game for Johnny Kenny to play on Thursday at Stamford Bridge against a good Chelsea side. If he can get a goal, then it would it would leave him a really good opportunity going back to Celtic and really proving himself. I've liked the goals that I've seen so far. The goal that he scored last Thursday was a brilliant goal. The chipped one, I know he scored 2 against that team, but the chipped goal that he scored 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper, he showed that composure that's needed for a Celtic striker.
Yeah.
It's up to him to make sure that Celtic don't sign another striker in January, and he can be the player that can learn off of Adamidi and Kyogo Furuhashi respectively. If he can do that, then he'll be in a pretty good position to showcase what he can do.
Yeah, so that's tomorrow night, everyone. I'm certainly going to stick that on in the background
me too.
And see how Johnny Kenny gets on, because he's going to be coming back to us after that game. Do I bring this up? Yeah, I mean, the SFA announced yesterday that they made a mistake for the apparent penalty that Rangers wanted on Sunday afternoon. And I find all this quite amusing, Ryan, because it's in a funny way, almost, well, it certainly does rub salt into the wounds for our rivals, because they're not going to go back and change the outcome of the game and hand the trophy to Rangers, but we're apparently going to get the next episode of the VAR review. I think it's called the Willie Column this week. So I think we're going to get to hear the audio, certainly the audio from the officials. Certainly that's what's happened previously on the show. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to hear, and clearly Willie Collins going to come out and say made a mistake, so we can get the popcorn out on Thursday or whenever that's out, and enjoy the audio from Sunday, knowing that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, personally speaking, from me watching it, it has been quite enjoyable, all of this, but it is a bit tiring as well, that the fact that it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're still talking about a penalty incident. I thought the referee was poor, or the referee and VAR team were poor for the whole 120 minutes on Sunday. I thought there was some really questionable calls. I think Rangers were lucky to have 11 men on the park when Leon Balogun takes a player down on the edge of the box, already on a yellow. And if he wasn't on a yellow already, it would have been a yellow card. So I don't understand that refereeing. I think it should be judged fairly. A couple of really weird decisions. Also, was there not a foul right before the Scales incident that wasn't given, but which I thought was a foul? I do think that Celtic got away with one. I will be completely honest with that. I would be screaming for that if it was Celtic on the other end, even if it was on the line. It was a pullback, it was a yellow card, and I do think it was in the line, so it's a penalty. But it's one of these ones where there was still a bit of the game to go. Rangers could have pushed on, but it was Celtic that were pushing on and trying to get the win in extra time. Rangers were quite happy with penalties. Just so happens that Celtic went to the penalty shootout and scored 5 from 5. Rangers scored 4 from 5. So yeah, it's a decision, but they still had to go and score that penalty that was given to them if they were to get it. So it's all a woulda, coulda. It's all it's a perhaps here rather than it should have been a penalty, but it wasn't. It was a mistake. People need to move on. Unfortunately, I don't think that will happen, because I think it will be the main talking point from now until the next game at Ibrox. And I think there's a bit of pressure on the referee. That first flashpoint is going to be interesting, given the pressure that Rangers are putting on the referee at the moment.
But that's clearly what Rangers are trying to get out of all of this, because they're not going to get the match replayed on Sunday. Like that's not going to happen. They're not going to get anything out really of complaining, other than Willie Collum saying we made the wrong decision. So what? Wrong decisions happen. We've been done by many wrong decisions. Clearly, what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is influence the ref going forward for future matches and future derbies, and just almost plant this seed, I guess, that Rangers have been hard done by. And it's really frustrating, because they aren't hard done by at all. The reason they're not winning these derbies isn't because referees are making decisions that alter these fixtures. It's because they don't have a team of winners, and Celtic do have a team of winners. Like, that's the reason. Celtic have a better team, and Celtic have a team that can find a way to win even when we're not at our best, like on Sunday. So part of me finds it, as you say, just really nauseating. The other part just is kind of happy for them to go and waste all of their energy and Philippe Clement to come away from the game and waste all his energy going on about officials, when in reality they should be looking at themselves and wondering why even on a day when Celtic played pretty poorly, they still couldn't beat us. And they were still playing for penalties against a Celtic team playing poorly. So I'm relatively relaxed. I think going forward to Ibrox, there's going to be pressure on the referee, whoever it is. But that's clearly what Rangers are trying to do here. But I feel generally fine going forward. I mean, Blake's talking about an Aberdeen blatant penalty. I know the one he's talking about in the last year's final, and remember at the time, but like that's what I'm talking about. Like Rangers get decisions, Rangers don't get decisions, Celtic get decisions, Celtic don't get decisions, Aberdeen the same. Like, this is just the way things go. It's like, it's a real insult to everyone, I think, to peddle this myth that Rangers are being harshly treated by officials, and that's the reason they've won 3 trophies out of the last 25, while we've won 20. Like, that's not the reason they're not winning trophies. But for some reason, they have this feeling as a club, from the manager to the new chief executive who started yesterday to the fan base, that they want to go down that road where they want to blame all of this on officials. And I think if Celtic found themselves in a similar position, and decisions have gone against us in the past. Remember the 3-3 game at Ibrox last year, that penalty they got, Fabio Silva from Alistair Johnson. I thought that was very harsh, but did we hear about that for weeks after the game? Did Brendan Rodgers come out after the game and blame that on the fact that is the reason we didn't win the game at Ibrox? No, he didn't. He just got on with it. And I know Brendan Rodgers, before people say, I know he had his outburst after Tynecastle, but that's like the only time we've ever heard Brendan Rodgers being that critical of referees, whereas from that club,
I think he had grounds to after that game as well.
Yeah,
it was measured in the way that he did that. He had to, in my opinion, call out the referee after that game because it was disgraceful refereeing from, I believe it was John Beaton on the day, the same referee that took charge of Sunday's game.
Or was
it's quite funny that because it's
VAR maybe. Beaten maybe VAR.
Yes, he was. Yes, it was Don Robertson that was in the middle, but it was John Beaton that was in the VAR. That's the thing. You can get that right even when you're wrong because he was in charge of the VAR. It was VAR that was the problem in that game anyway, in terms of the re-refereeing of the game with Yang's red card and also the penalty for Iwata after Johnson got pushed into him and then the handball was initiated. But I'm quite fine with this sort of narrative that's going, because I think by the time the game comes along, the person that'll be under the most pressure will not be the referee. It'll be Philippe Clement because of his record against Celtic. He's still not managed to beat Celtic despite getting that 3-each win against them in March, April last year at Ibrox, the moral victory, as he called it. It's another game in which he's failed to beat Celtic, and that's got to grate the opposition support, knowing that Brendan Rodgers has firmly got his number, both in league titles and in terms of individual meetings between the two managers. And the more that goes on, the more that those dissenting voices will get louder and louder. For me, the main narrative that should be coming out of this game is the fact that Celtic have won 119 trophies in their history. That should be celebrated. But instead you're hearing about a penalty decision that should or should not have been given, which is it's disappointing. It's not entirely surprising, but everybody knows that covering the game that what Celtic achieved on that day is special. The fact that they didn't play at their best, but they showed their class in the penalty shootout. Kasper Schmeichel showed his class against Yilmaz. The 5 penalty kick takers showed immense character, stepping up to the plate and scoring those all-important penalties. The fact that they won another trophy, and that should be celebrated, but it seems that the narrative at the moment is talking about a penalty that should have been given. That's absolutely fine, because Celtic will keep on winning trophies and narratives will continue to get spun. But, the trophies are still at Celtic Park at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think, and generally in the media and the Rangers support are talking about that. To be fair, I think what we're talking about is mainly kind of laughing at the meltdown we've seen across the city. But I think generally I've noticed like the Celtic support were obviously absolutely delighted about winning another trophy, especially when we didn't play well on Sunday. But I think there's been a bit of a feeling, and we had a good conversation yesterday with Kevin and Tony about this, that in recent weeks Celtic haven't hit that level from the start of the season, and we all feel as a support that we want to get back to hitting that level. Meanwhile, Rangers, who lost the final, appear to feel they're going in the right direction, and I feel like we've heard that before, and I really just wouldn't be surprised if in that next derby, if Celtic turn up and play a lot better. Like I feel like we've been in this situation before. After a close game, they feel they're really making progress, and then the next derby comes and we just blow them out the water. So I'm pretty relaxed. I think Celtic are going to get back to where we need to be, and I actually think we might see that on Sunday. I think the couple of days off might turn out to be a really good move from the manager, because it's been quite an intense period recently. And I just think that after winning the League Cup, bit of a kind of a full stop in our season, or a bit of a break, given that we've not got any Champions League games for the next few weeks, we can kind of tick that off for now. We're in a good situation. League Cup ticked off, that's one for this season. And you've got a free midweek, one of your few free midweeks. So I think it was a good move to give the players a couple of days off, and they're back in training this morning, Ryan. Hopefully they're just back, and obviously confidence is going to be high, but hopefully they're back refreshed, even though it was only a couple of days off, and are ready to go for Tannadice on Sunday. Because you're now looking at having secured one trophy. You're looking at these next few matches in the league with no real other distractions, no European football. Scottish Cup's not started yet. If you keep winning in the league and win at Ibrox, or even probably avoid defeat at Ibrox, the league's probably going to be as good as over by kind of early January.
Yeah, and what a position to be in as well. Although the team that they're playing against, Dundee United, have been in decent form recently. They've also got the top goal scorer in the Scottish Premiership, in Sam Dalby, who is on loan from Wrexham at the moment. I believe he's got 8 or 9 goals in the Scottish Premiership. Okay. This is what happens when Celtic have got so many goal scorers on 5 or 6 goals respectively. They'll get about 3 or 4 in and around that, but a lot of Dundee United's goals have came from the one place up front for Sam Dalby, the Wrexham striker that's on loan at the moment. He's doing really well. He's scoring a lot of goals for Dundee United, so he'll be a player to watch out for. But I always look forward to games at Tannadice. It's a really, really good stadium, good atmosphere always. I'm not sure about the allocation that Celtic will have for the game, but I'm sure it'll be, regardless of how many fans are there, they'll be making one hell of a noise. I think the fact it's a Sunday is good as well, because you can watch what happens on the Saturday with Rangers, Aberdeen, etc., and then just move into Sunday. Having that extra day, I'm glad that they've had those days off, because they deserve it after winning a trophy. I hope they had a good night out wherever they went on Sunday into Monday with the darts with some of those players. I'd like to see that group of players as well mix with each other, because it's a very mixed group of different people. You've got Engels already hanging about with Cameron Carter-Vickers, Adam Ida, Greg Taylor, Stephen Welsh, etc. I like to see that. I'm glad that Engels has really integrated with the squad and is hanging about with them. I was really happy to see that, and I hope to see him kick on as well, because I did think he had a bit of a mixed game on Sunday. He got an assist and he scored a great penalty against Jack Butland, but I thought his overall play on the pitch, apart from that assist, left a lot to be desired at times. But there's definitely a player there. I'm not concerned. It's just all about form and keeping it going. But we've seen it at the start. We've seen it in moments. We know that he's going to be a good player. So maybe even having this bit of time off, bonding with his teammates a little bit more. I think you'll maybe see it on Sunday. But then again, you could see Luke McCown on Sunday in that midfield against his former rival. He's already played against Dundee United this season in the Dundee derby. I believe that he scored a penalty as well in that game, in the first game of the season. That was one of the games I was watching, because I was like, are Celtic going to go back in for Luke McCown? And he was really impressive. That was actually a really good game to watch. I think it was on Premier Sports on Sunday. I think it was on the Sunday afternoon before Celtic played. I believe it was the first half that was played, and then I went ahead along to Celtic Park for Flag Day. But it was a really good game. Dundee United are a decent team under Jim Goodwin, doing really well despite being promoted this season. They're well in the top half of the table. It'll be a tough tie, but I expect Celtic to come out all guns blazing and hoping to get a couple of goals against his side. But I'd quite like to see Luke McCown. I think there'll be nobody happier with the League Cup win than him, because he knows that he's now available for every single game now, and he can really be in contention for every game too. That would have annoyed him that he wouldn't have been involved, and I think that it would have annoyed Brendan Rodgers as well, because I think a player like Luke McCown would have really calmed down Celtic on Sunday in those hairy moments, especially in the second half and extra time.
Yeah, he would definitely come on as one of our 6 subs.
Yeah,
I think I'd potentially look at him starting. I think I'd have Adam Ida in from the start on Sundays. But I thought Ida was really good when he came on.
too.
I thought he made a big difference to the team, and had a few comments this week. Had one yesterday. It was in similar lines, but Fasty just bringing up, do we have an issue with Kyogo not dropping off and linking the play anymore? I think every striker should do this because it helps their play. Plus, it's harder to pick him up when he turns. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Kyogo, I think generally, like, Kyogo in his Celtic career hasn't tended to link the play too much. Like, I always remember under Postecoglou, games would go by where Kyogo wouldn't really touch the ball too often, but he'd always be there to score a goal or two. And you didn't mind that at all. I guess the thing is that Kyogo hasn't really scored too many of late, and I think he has been quite ineffective, generally speaking, in a lot of the games. And I can't quite put my finger on what that is, whether he's not getting the ball enough, not making the movements that he should be, or whether it's just that the midfield hasn't been playing as well over the past few weeks as he has recently. What I do know is Adam Ida made a big difference on Sunday in terms of coming to the ball and taking the ball in. And I think at times so far this season, Ida's link-up play has been a bit mixed. I think times he brings the ball in and then he's kind of get the simple pass and he'll give it away or he'll take a big touch. But I thought on Sunday he was really good. Like, he really held the ball in when we needed it in that second half, because the first half performance was pretty poor from the team. And I thought he made a difference when he came on. So I would have him starting on Sunday and potentially just take Kyogo out for Sunday and maybe that lights a fire under him a wee bit. Have you got any thoughts on what's happening with Kyogo at the moment?
The thing is, I think he's doing what Brendan Rodgers is asking him to. I think he's playing in exactly the way that Brendan Rodgers wants him to, and whether or not that's influential to the team or not, or his own game, I think this is what Brendan Rodgers wants from these players. He always makes the Lee Griffiths comparison, because he joined the club and Lee Griffiths had scored 40 goals the previous season, and he said, well, there's no point in scoring 40 goals if it's just coming from the one place. He would much rather have all the goals spread out in the team. I know that his goal record isn't that great this season, but he's one of those big game players that can turn it on just like that. It's like an on switch with Kyogo. It'll be in through on goal and he'll do something spectacular. I don't know if he needs to change up his game in order to be more effectual in front of goal. But like you, I was very impressed with Ida when he came on. I thought he did carry the ball well. I think he's one of these players, and I've spoke about it a couple of times before, that within his first couple of touches what player you're going to get on the day. If you've got a good touch from Ida the first two, you're like, right, a guy that's over 6 foot, he's quite quick, he's quite strong as well. He's going to cause the opposition some problems. Whereas if he has a bad first couple of touches, you're like, right, he could be a nightmare. I'm not going to say he's a man down or anything, but he's going to really struggle to influence the game and impact the game. But he was good. He didn't score, but he scored one of the penalties, and also shows character from Ida that he stepped up and took the first one. That's a real pressure penalty, because James Tavernier had just stuck one in. That was the Rangers captain. He's used to scoring penalties. Automatically there was pressure on the player, but Ida was so calm and composed, and he slotted it away so well. I would like to see him start against Dundee United. I'd like to actually see him get a run of games to get some momentum going ahead of Ibrox, because I think Ibrox is one of those games that he could potentially play and cause problems in, particularly in the counter-attack. He's seen that in the second half of that 3-each game He came on and really did cause damage. He should have scored more than one goal. I remember there was a chance just before he scored the goal, the assist from Paulo Bernardo, that it was through on goal, and he probably had too much time to think about it. But if he's focused and if he's in that headspace and mind zone, then he can really cause Rangers problems and cause other teams problems. I just want to see him kick on because I think there's a really good player there, a really good player that will be developing under Brendan Rodgers. Rodgers is happy to have him. So I just want to see him continue to improve.
Yeah, listen, obviously I knew there'd be, a fair few comments coming in, a few people unhappy. Generally, Mark says he couldn't disagree more. Ida offers nothing, no touch, not a natural finisher, can't hold up play. Welsh Paul, can't believe it, says he gets no service. Joe Allen, not that one. Kyogo and Rodgers just isn't an optimum partnership. What Rodgers wants from a team isn't typically what gets the best out of Kyogo. And we got another one in. Howard saying Kyogo's doing just fine, needs service. I just don't think Kyogo's playing particularly well at the moment, and that's how I feel. I just don't think he's involved enough in games. I don't think it's anything major to worry about. I'm sure he'll get back to the level, but I rate Adam Ida really highly, and I thought Adam Ida made a big difference on Sunday for me in terms, as I've said, holding the ball up and linking the play. And I don't think we would have got a fair bit of that joy that we got in the second half if Kyogo had been on the pitch. But who knows? It's just my opinion. Okay, Ryan, happy to head off on that note then. And we can move forward to Sunday afternoon. Thanks very much, mate.
Absolutely. Yeah, no bother at all. Looking forward to Sunday. Happy that they've got this wee break now in between the cup final. Enjoy the cup final, but also refocus back on the league and get another 3 points in the Premiership. They're in a really good spot. And the fact that we're talking about if a striker isn't scoring enough goals, but there's goals all over the pitch, it's a pretty good place to be in for Brendan Rodgers at the moment.
Yes, it's very good. Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate you watching, all of you. And we'll catch up with you very soon.